Greetings. In this video, we will be discussing falling in love with yourself and being in love with yourself. So, let's get into the topic. When people fall in love with someone, generally speaking, they feel this immense, unconditional love for this person, regardless of anything. It's infinite. So, this means that they don't care about anything except for that this love for this individual is unconditional, regardless of whatever flaws or imperfections or anything that this individual might contain. Somebody could be wicked and they could see that person's wickedness but want to love them into their divinity. They can see someone's wickedness but want to love them into their divinity. They love this person so much because it's unconditional, it's infinite, it's immense, it's past all of their flaws and things. So that is the way people have to love themselves. Now, it's easy for somebody to say, okay, love yourself unconditionally. And a lot of people say that they love themselves unconditionally, but do they feel and really have this unconditional, infinite, then fell in love beyond all flaws with self? Do they have that unconditional love for self? Well, if they're in the space, if anyone is in the space where they're looking at themselves and they're thinking anything negative about themselves, their past, their situation, and they're not looping out of that and saying, I still love you though. I love you beyond that. If they're not looking at their journey and their self with that infinite, unconditional, beyond all flaw and circumstance love, then that's where they got to get to. And I'm sharing this from a space of, what's the name of this channel? My Self-Love Journey. And basically, that's something that I've been learning, which is that people should fall in love with themselves the way that they fall in love with other people. or if they fell in love before with that same unconditionalness. I've seen people fall in love with others, totally accepting of others' flaws, but then not in love with themselves, not in love with every aspect of themselves, looking critical at themselves, judging themselves, and just looking at every aspect of their reality and self with just like that critical, analytical. But when somebody's in love with somebody, they don't do that. They be putting a magnifying glass on the person's flaws and wickedness or whatever it is, whether it's a pimple or some demonic tendencies. They, if in a space of unconditional love, then they look beyond it. Similar to how Source looks at us, the Most High God, just loving us from that infinite space, regardless of anything. So, for someone needing to take this medicine of falling in love with self, it would definitely involve stepping out of the practice of over analyzation of flaws, negativities, or imperfections, but literally loving the self into divinity or loving the self into the best that we can be. So when someone's in love with someone and they're looking beyond this person's imperfections, they're basically saying all that matters is this love that is from Source, and that is it. This love from Source transcends all things. This love from Source is above and beyond. So that stuff doesn't even matter. And that is a space for the one that is in love with self, falling in love with self. It is just permeating beyond all of the finite things, all of the little things of the existence, everything beyond all of that, and just into the soul. Loving. And that's what it is. Because when somebody is truly in love with someone, they're able to look past their flaws and imperfections or whatever because they love that soul, that heart, for whatever reason. And being in love with the self and falling in love with the self is being in love with your heart, being in love with your soul, and in that space, not being focused on looking at the self through the distortions or the kaleidoscope of finite extensions or creations of the psychological projected and created reality. And did I put created in there twice? But you get my point though. This reality, as we know it, as we create it, as we exist in it, we can focus on unconditional love of self, being in love with self, or for some of us, falling in love with self, continuing to fall in love with self. That means that, if something, you do something that you don't like, or you experience something that you don't like, you don't all of a sudden fall out of love with yourself. Or, if you see something that you don't like or would rather not experience, because what is like? Something that you would rather not experience. You still in the love of self. And I know that out here in these spiritual streets, out here in the universe, people, I have experienced myself just in certain moments where the energy of what is coming through in the creation, in the space of cause and effect, I've experienced sometimes it doesn't feel favorable or feel comfortable. But regardless of that, it is like noticing an imperfection on a beloved. You get beyond it. You move beyond it. No need to stay stuck in that for an extended meditation of falling out of love with self or judging self, because the love is unconditional. So there's no judgment there. It's just continuous progression, continuous evolving, elevating, and for those that are healing, continue, healing and elevating. So falling in love with self or maintaining that energy of being in a constant state of love with self beyond all of the drama of life, whatever it is, and staying in that love. When people are in love with somebody, that's all that matters. So being in love with self, regardless of anything being experienced externally, anything being seen externally, that's where we need to be. That unconditional love. So I'm definitely wishing everyone lots of love for ourselves and just being in that space of being in love with self the same way that you would be in love with somebody else, regardless of their flaws or imperfections. Being in love with everything about yourself, even if it's something unfavorable being experienced, even if it's something challenging being experienced, even if it's a what the F is this type of, still moving beyond it. Unconditionally loving self. That's where we at. That's where we gotta. That's what we gotta maintain. And when you think about it, people that just really, really be on that unconditional love story for self, though, that means that no matter what happens, you still in love with yourself. I don't know why that feels so deep to me, y'all. But I'm thinking about it. Just like all the unconditional love that I extended to others. But then how critical I was of myself. And how important it is to have that unconditional love for self based off of the reflection that I was having about the unconditional love, the infinite love that I was extending to others, and how important it is for me to maintain that space for self. Because in my reflection, in the story that, I'm reflecting on right now, I was definitely just all encompassed in a oneness aspect of my reality. So it's just interesting for me. I'm grateful to learn and to grow and to share. We have to be an expert of ourselves, right? An expert of our existence. That's what we're here to do, to become an expert of our existence. So, we have to be an expert of self. We don't got to be an expert of anybody else, really, but definitely an expert of ourselves. And gaining that expertise from the experiences. So, life continues to be real. And that unconditional love for self will allow someone to go through their challenges and anything unfavorable that they, balancing out, can't wait to get through and be done with and transcend and transform. Staying in love, loving yourself into your divinity, loving ourselves into our divinity mastery. So that is what this video is about. And that's what I wanted to communicate. That's what we wanted to communicate and share. Being in love with ourselves, staying in that space of love with ourselves. And like I said, the reflection just came as I was thinking about the unconditional love given, but then how critical I would look at my actions and experiences. But I wasn't looking at the people that I was in love with like that, though. With those microscopic no you didn't glasses. I was definitely like emoji eyes, like, oh, it's okay. We gonna get you right. Unconditional love, infinite love for self. That means that whatever's surfacing in the reality, whether it be a pimple, a situation with another being, mistakes, whatever it is that has been created or that has happened, loving the self through it unconditionally, supporting that transcendence into mastery of self. So that's what this video is about. And like I said, how this reflection came, because sometimes people ask me, like, what brought this video about? Just reflecting on my journey, but also the way, that people are when they love someone. It's just totally beyond flaws, beyond conditions. And that is the way we must always love ourselves. Beyond all flaws and conditions and situations. Just that undying love for self in every moment. So that means, no matter what. Because remember, it's beyond all of that. So when people are willing to extend that level of grace towards another being, that is so divine. But they have to make sure that they're able to extend that grace towards the self as well. And just continue to be in that space of love with self, no matter what. That is the message. I hope that it was communicated in a fashion that was stimulating and entertaining and informative and encouraging and empowering, because that was my objective, y'all. So, let me know something. Did you enjoy this communication and how you feel about it? Where you at in your self-love journey, or just any reflections or thoughts that came up during the build? I look forward to making another video, and on this channel I share about the ascension journey, the self-love journey, the love journey, the journey that everyone is on in their soul ascension, their soul awareness, their soul existence. So, have a beautiful journey, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And if you have not subscribed and you are interested in getting a notification when there is another self-love journey video out, then please do subscribe so you can get that notification. And wishing everybody lots of love. And if you feel called, you can gift this video out into the universe. And yeah, that's it. 50,000 billion trillion ands later. I'm actually going to end this video now. Have a beautiful day.